Well, to get started, we always like to just kind of find out a little bit about our speakers. I know you hail from Chicago. Tell us a little bit about growing up in Chicago, and tell us a little bit about your family and your parents and your sisters.
Okay, I was born and raised in a suburb of Chicago called Skokie. It's most famous for where the American Nazi Party tried marching in 1978 or 79. I'm forgetting
Wow.
now.
Sure,
to
know
try
it
to
well.
piss off all the retired Jews who were concentration camp survivors, which was really nice of them. And they didn't end up marching in Skokie. They only marched in the movie in the Blues Brothers instead. I didn't hear the whole thing there, but that's okay. Let's see. You asked me about my parents. My father is from Omaha, Nebraska, and is a retired corporate economist. He worked for a steel company for almost 30 years. When I was a little boy and I would visit him at his office in the Loop in Chicago, people would look at me strangely and say, "Are you going to be an economist too someday?" And because they thought he was strange as the economist at a company. My mother, who passed away 5 years ago, right after my 5-year-old daughter was born, raised 3 children. I have a sister in London and another sister in New York. All right.
Better? Too low?
How's that?
Great. Thanks. Okay, so you didn't become an economist, but you went to school in Illinois, and was your plan basically from the beginning? Was it to become a journalist? What was your thought? What did you want to be when you grew up?
No, it wasn't my plan. I was a political science and then history major, and was headed toward going to law school. I met a lot of miserable law students and decided that I didn't really want to be a law student or a lawyer. And I got really lucky toward the end of college. The summer before my senior year in college, I was dating a girl who worked for the Daily Illini, the very fine student newspaper at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. And I contributed some political columns from Washington, where I was doing a summer internship with a congressional caucus, and I really liked seeing my name in the newspaper. And I talked my way into a regular column the following semester.
Awesome.
Really enjoyed that. Thought that I wanted to be William Safire at the New York Times, if anybody remembers who he was. And it dawned on me that the New York Times would not be giving me a column the following year when I graduated from college. So spring term, I became a reporter for the paper, and I would take any assignment that the editors would give me. I was older than the editors, and so I could do what I wanted.
You could get around.
And I fell in love. I found my calling as a journalist.
What were you writing about initially? I mean, was it? Tell us, what were some of your big? What were the stories that got the most page views back then?
Yeah, thank you for pointing out my age, since there weren't page views at the time, obviously.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So my column was about politics, both campus politics, national politics, international politics. My news coverage, because I was hungry for bylines. That's the way journalists think. You want more bylines, more clips to show future employers. I covered a protest at the local dry cleaner because the animal rights activists were upset that they were storing fur coats. I covered telephone company rate commission hearings. I covered a very controversial topic, which was an effort by the federal government to close a local Air Force base. I went to Washington to cover that, and also a women's march for equality on Capitol Hill.
Wow.
I took everything I could get.
Wow. And did you have a love for tech? Did you have a love for, was that something that materialized later, or was that something, did you guys, grow up with a computer in the home, or?
No, no, I'm not to this day, I'm not a techie per se. I took a handful of business classes in college because my father it really insisted that I do. So I took a couple econ classes, an accounting class, a finance class. So I graduated with the lingo of business, being comfortable with the lingo of business. I went to Washington because I was interested in politics, but the first job I got was in business journalism, and so I just became a business journalist, a business generalist over the first 10 or so years of my career. I did cover technology in Chicago, which when I applied for a job at the San Jose Mercury News, they said, but you cover technology in Chicago. What is that good for? Not much. But I talked my way into the job at the San Jose Mercury News, and I always billed myself as a business journalist covering the technology industry, not a technology journalist covering the technology industry. That turned out to be really useful when I started this Tech Stocks column at the Mercury News in '97, because really all the emphasis had been on technology. And I showed up in the offices of analysts, investment bankers, chief financial officers who were delighted to see somebody from the Mercury News who gave a shit about finance.
Yeah.
Because everybody else wanted to talk about all these other
Engineering.
important topics
Sure.
that weren't my topic.
And I mean, was that, so that was a really fresh take. I mean, we think that was '97. You said that you got to the San Jose Mercury
As the first bubble was inflating,
Yeah.
and the year that Steve Jobs came back to
back.
Apple.